Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to the Christian Whistleblower channel. Most of you know who I am and know what I do. We do have a lot of new people coming in. We're here basically to help you unindoctrinate yourself, to guide your own spirit, to master your own ascension, to be your own guru. And we're not here to tell you what to think or how to think, just hopefully inspire you to think objectively and to think for yourself. Today, I'm very excited, very happy, very honored to have with us CRROW777. Many of you know of his work on YouTube. Many of you know of the CRROW777 radio, a shining clarion voice for individuality and for freedom, and bringing up a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of repeaters on YouTube and not a lot of reporters, and I'm glad to have CRROW777 with us, as he's definitely a reporter, not a repeater. Welcome to the show, Crow.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. And I'd like to say I've actually got the feed. You don't have to link me in. I've got it.
Okay, perfect. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So how long have you been at this YouTube game, Crow?
Oh, so let's see. Accidentally filmed the Lunar Wave in 2012 in the fall, September. Held on to it for a year. It went live, I think, in October of 2013. I didn't really want to do social media, but I gave in because I had so much video. So basically, I guess 2013 October is when I became public online.
So you accidentally filmed this Lunar Wave. If you don't know what this is, if you've been under a rock somewhere, what Crow did, and I saw this, and the first time I looked at it, I thought, there's got to be something to it. But the more I looked and the more I studied it, why don't you just tell everybody what you did, Crow, with that Lunar Wave?
Well, you and I are of a mind. When I first saw it, I tried to explain it away. I thought I did something wrong or my equipment failed. It was a mental block, basically, because digital equipment doesn't fail organically. What happened was in May of 2012, myself, my nephew, my brother-in-law, other family members were looking at the supermoon. And all of a sudden, my nephew spotted black triangles going over the moon. And he hollered out at me, and then I saw him, and we saw this for a couple, 2-3 hours maybe. So next day I got things to film, and I thought, boy, I'll film the rest of my life. I'll never get anything like this. Within a few days, I had gotten a couple things, but from May to September, in September, I was filming one night, and I panned below the moon. The Lunar Wave started, the 2012 capture, which is the best capture we have to date that I'm aware of. And I didn't see it. So I panned back up to the moon and the wave caught up to the camera. I did see it and I watched it happen. I thought something's failing. I went to delete the clip. Had I done that, we would have lost it. I didn't. And then I put it on my computer and I kept coming back to it time and time again. Finally, eventually, I deleted it into my recycle bin on my computer. But that night I had the epiphany. I jumped out of bed, rebooted, restored the clip, and I realized the camera pan proves this is a filmed event, because the wave caught up to the camera pan. And then at that point for the next year, people looked at it that were smart, that were all, people that I saw it, and we realized this is a real thing. And that's how it all started. A year later, I put it online and the floodgates opened to the point where I had to change my phone numbers and email addresses. It's kind of a big deal when it first went into the public.
Well, it's still a big deal. And I was going to try to explain what it looked like. Can you just kind of give everybody a description of what it looked like to you?
So I don't know how old members of your audience are, but even the younger members, what you can do is imagine it this way. If you got an old style tube TV, not a flat screen, but an old style tube TV, and you filmed it with an old style VHS camera, there's like a rolling wave effect that you would get in recording that way with those old analog equipment. And that's kind of what the Lunar Wave looks like. The Lunar Wave always comes in pairs. And in the 2012 capture, you can see as the wave goes by, it displaces the image of the moon twice, kind of like when you're in a restaurant and a straw's in a glass of water and the straw looks broken from the displacement, the light refraction. That's what happens as you look through the wave. The entire image of the moon is displaced.
And it's very, very visually striking. And if I remember correctly, one of the things that really made me sit up and take notice was that you can see some of the, we'll call it space behind the moon, whether it's space or not is for another discussion. But you could see what was behind the moon, and the wave did not go across the whole frame, so to speak. It just went on the moon. Am I correct?
Well, I need to correct that. That was one. I made some big mistakes when I first, I was just a private guy.
Right.
And suddenly I was on the world stage, and I said some things I should have never said. I had to learn. I said it was maybe a hologram was a way to describe it, or a facade. And those were big mistakes. I just didn't have the language. The truth of it is we had a video engineer look at it, and we were reasonably sure the wave was not crossing the frame. We know better now. If I was going to rename the lunar wave now to best describe what we know about it, I would call it a firmament wave. It's been filmed 3 times in front of Jupiter and the moons of Jupiter, and 1 time in front of Saturn, 30 to 40 times in front of the moon. So I don't remember whether I said lunar wave or someone else did, but if I was going to give it a good descriptive name, and I'm not suggesting we rename it because everyone knows it how they know it now, it's called the lunar wave, but a firmament wave would communicate to every mind that it can happen across the entirety of the sky.
So you just happened to be looking at the moon when you saw the wave.
Right. I was trying to film objects. Anyone who's familiar with my YouTube channel, the old clips before all my podcast, and my movie Shoot the Moon has almost everything interesting I filmed. So many bizarre captures. Matter of fact, in the movie Shoot the Moon, I don't think I'm aware of another movie that has that many strange things shot through telescopes and high-end optics. And by the way, Shoot the Moon is available on Vimeo on demand. It's in some film festivals now. And actually, at first, we got turned down everywhere because I'm telling the truth as I see it. But now it's been picked up. It's won 3 or 4 awards. And as soon as we're done with that, we'll probably sell discs, DVDs or Blu-rays or something like that. But for now, people, or if you become a recurring member at CRROW777radio.com, you get to see the movie for free. We just give you keys. But yeah, I don't know. Have you seen it? If you haven't seen it, when we get done here, email me and I'll give you keys so you can see it.
Sounds good. Now, please explain to people how you're filming these things, because you were filming them yourself. You weren't taking other people's footage. It was actually you doing it, right?
Yeah. Well, I used to say everything on this channel was filmed by me, but when I started to get so famous, people would send me stuff and ask me to run it. Occasionally I would. For the most part, I filmed everything that matters. And how I did it was I had an 8-inch fully robotic Schmidt Cassegrain telescope. I would take off the rear cell where the eyepiece goes, take off the lens to a camera, DSLR, and make the telescope become the lens of the camera. And as time went on, I got more sophisticated. I got a bigger scope eventually, almost 12 inches, just under 12 inches. And I got a really good, at the time, 36 megapixel camera. I got a full spectrum camera. And I filmed like that. And also there's a bunch of daytime shots, some through a telescope, some with a big honking telephoto lens with a doubler, where I filmed things like the what we call orbs. They look like plasma balls, and they're always around. They used to always be around chemtrails. Very difficult to find them now. But I filmed one dropping into a chemtrail, going against the wind and shooting like plasma beams. That's also in the movie.
Any speculation as to why they're more difficult to find now or to see now?
I don't think people want us knowing about whatever they're associated with chemtrails. I can tell you that absolutely. I never filmed an orb when chemtrails or chemplanes were not in the sky. I filmed some far away from chemtrails, but they were headed to the chemtrails. Just to be perfectly clear, when you go look at all the things I shot, I did optics expert work with a guy who valued pixels for my exact systems between still shots, videos, resolution differences, exactly to my system. Everything I shot from my point of view is within our atmosphere and human technology, even those weird orbs, oddly enough. I accept, well, the Bible, for one, tells you about a firmament. I accept that. There is a hard, fast barrier. And from my point of view, no one's ever gone through it. And I've also said, space might be better described as a liquid. If that is correct, then maybe that starts to speak to the lunar wave in some way. But truth is, we just need to know so much more than we do.
A lot of things to speculate about, and there's a lot of things to question. And I think that's one of the important things that we do. We're so quick to put ourselves into camps. He's this, I'm that, she's that, I'm this, and let the two never meet. And whatever our convictions are, I think we are all best served when we're able to discuss them, debate them, and have some, I was going to say intercourse. That's a weird word, but you know what I mean? Have some back and forth about things rather than just going into camps and saying, hey, we're not going to do it. And we're talking to CRROW777. And this segment of the show is brought to you by my great sponsors at Mistech. They make this great jewelry that I wear that restores you to the Schumann resonance. There are also many that are imprinted with specific frequencies to help you in your spiritual growth. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the Mistech logo, and you'll get 20% off. So, Crow, you've looked at the moon arguably as much as anybody over the past few years. What if someone backed you into a corner and pointed a gun at you and forced you to tell them what they thought you thought the moon was? What would you say?
I would say that the oldest texts we can get our hands on and the religious traditions from all over the world tell you the truth. I refer to the moon as a luminary. I'd like to know a lot more about it, but I would also point out that viewing it as a reflection of some sort is huge in many old Eastern traditions. But the old alchemical texts constantly use the moon to communicate to you the idea of illusion. When they're trying to tell
that's true.
A spiritual seeker, be careful, your eyes can fool you. So many illusions in this world. They always use the moon reflected on a lake. And I can give an example. So many of us here in the West don't have much culture beyond movies and television, which is unfortunate, but we're just not an old culture here in America like some other parts of the world.
Right.
If you go look at the beginning of DreamWorks, and that name should
that's
tell
so
you something.
good.
Dream works. They're telling you the truth. Dream works. There is a picture of the moon and you're saying, oh, there's the moon. But all of a sudden a fishing bobber hits it and you realize, wait a minute, that's not the moon. That's the moon reflected in water. That is verbatim the teaching from all the ancient alchemical and Eastern traditions. By the way, when I say alchemy, I'm not saying black magic. I'm saying natural science that precedes the science we use now. That's what I'm referring to. But anyhow, the bobber hits the water and you realize it's the reflection of the moon. You follow the little bobber up. There's a little boy sitting on the moon fishing for souls up there. We've said over and over that the moon seems to play a role in the life and death of human beings. But again, so much more needs to be known.
And it almost seems like, Crow, that that little boy is like toying with us, and there's some group somewhere that has this impression that they're toying with us. And I was just talking with Cynthia, my girlfriend. We were talking about going to see a particular movie that I won't name. And sometimes, I do like to go and watch a movie, but I think about things like what you just spoke about. And, you hate to get to this place of being legalistic and don't do this and don't do that. But how dangerous do you personally think it is to get ourselves immersed in this Hollywood culture?
Here's the thing. If you go see a magic show in Vegas and you see the white lion fly across the stage, and the reason I'm saying it this way is because Hollywood is known to be the magic factory, the dream factory. So That's why I'm using this allegory. The audience, there will be some people that say, oh my God, I just saw magic. A white tiger flew across the stage. Some people will say, how did they do that? How did that tiger? And some people are be saying, oh, it's just a trick. Point is once you know how the trick was done, the magic no longer works on you.
Right.
So to see a movie is a choice, but when it becomes your cultural source, your be all and end all, oh my God, I can't miss the next Disney Marvel movie. That's a problem. And when look at the Wakanda thing from the Marvel movies. It took so much of African-American culture and affected it in a way that it should not. Wakanda is not a real place. It just isn't.
I'm unfamiliar with that one.
It's the whole Black Panther.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not big on
this. So it's creating a construct that people are viewing as something more than fiction. And that's a problem. And But once you know how the magic is done, it no longer affects you in the same way. But let's be perfectly honest. Colors have frequency. Sound has frequency. Light has frequency. And it has been shown over and over and over, scientifically proven, that a habitual television watcher gets a brainwave the same as an opiate addict. So what happens, some of the tricks they use, just so I can illustrate this to people, is what I call the 3-second cut. Whenever you're watching something on television and the scene cuts in 3 seconds or less, this is what they're doing to you. Your brain doesn't have time to catch up and make a decision when it's only been given a second or two to see an image. When that happens over and over, your brain just gives up eventually. And it goes from the waves it was in to almost like a sleep pattern, which matches what a opiate addict would have. It's literally creating an opiate type high in your brain.
It's a hypnotic effect, isn't it?
Well, here's the problem. You drop into what's called your lower or reptilian mind.
Yes.
And in that mind, your brain cannot distinguish reality from fantasy. And so what happens is people lose track of what's real. Now, when you understand all these things and you learn how to see images and take them apart, you begin to realize I don't want to do this a lot because I'm not immune to color frequencies. No matter how much I know, I can't not be affected by frequencies, and everything is a frequency. And these people are clever. You think that television's there for whatever you think it's for. I'll tell you what it's there for. It's there to program and propagandize society and steer it in whatever damn direction they want. Right now, some of the big things are mental health. That's one of the big things being pushed. Another one is gender confusion, because they want you all to forget what nature taught you. A male and a female make more of whatever species that is. That is the basis for everything. And right now, they want you to believe that the world is overpopulated. My butt. We did research, Jason and I, and what we found is endless cultures in this world are going to start becoming extinct in the next 3 generations if birth rates don't pull up. And this goes back to even more programming. Who can forget the women's lib movement of the 70s? Well, right now you can go on YouTube. The one of the engineers of that was Gloria Steinem. She's on YouTube admitting she worked for the CIA. So while she was convincing women to burn their bras because somehow that made them more equal, what she was actually doing is convincing women, if you want to be taken serious, you got to act more like a man. Well, I got news for you. Nature shows us that there's a difference between being a man and a woman. And there's a reason for it, because both parts are required to make children. And that's how we get more human beings. But what's worse is then women were convinced, now I got to work. They used to take care of the family. Back in the day, when they started going to work, what happened, probably engineered, was that instead of starting families at age 23, 24, it went up into the 30s. And that one thing alone lowered birth rates.
Ooh, so I've never heard anybody tie that together. That's very profound.
This whole gender confusion nonsense that's going on now is a similar thing. It's going to, one of the results of that will be to reduce birth rates. And it goes, here's the thing. If you look at supposed cultures like the American Indians, they handled it so perfectly. There would be men born that didn't want to be a hunter or a warrior. They wanted to hang out with the women. And what the Indians did is said, we call this person two spirits. And fine, we don't label them. They just hang out where they want. If they want to hang out with the women, that's cool. That's how they handled it. So they understand that nature provides these things, but they don't make an issue of it.
Let me ask you a controversial question. Do you know if those two spirits, if the tribe dissuaded them from reproductive activities?
No, you see, it was totally on the individual. It was the idea that nature shows you the truth, and that one of the things a human being has is freedom of choice. In other words, as long as you're not violating something against your culture or harming people or doing damage to your group, you do what you want. And this is what's taught in nature. Like if you look at a pack of wolves, sure, there's an alpha male there ensuring they all get fed and that the babies are protected. But the point is each wolf is making its own decisions. Even though that alpha male is there, nature shows you. But those are animals. When you step up to being a human being, one of the biggest things we have going for us is what we can do with our minds and freedom of choice. And in the current age, all the censorship, all these fictitious admiralty laws, they're trying to deny you the freedom of choice. This is why we have things like political parties. You can go back and look at a guy named Montague Norman, who was the governor of the Central Bank of England in the 1920s. He came over to the United States in 1924 and talked to all the bankers in America. And by the way, the central bank in England was the model that was going to put the central bank here. I think everybody knows what we're talking about. Worthless fiat currency that we all exist on. So anyhow, he comes and has this meeting to talk to all the bankers, and he says, hey, bankers of America, guess what? We got our political parties in place, red and blue, Democrat and Republican. Now we can use them to our benefit by getting them to endlessly argue about things of no importance. And from that day in the 1920s through the crash in the 1930s, 29, 30, 33, to today, those parties have been serving the same purpose. And what people don't understand is when you were in high school and they told you, how does a president get seated? Well, the Electoral College does that. Nobody to this day bothers to take the time to understand that your vote does nothing to seat a president. The Electoral College does that. And people's heads are spinning right now. But I'm sorry, if you want to know the truth, you can go verify everything I'm telling you. When you go out to vote for the president of the United States, what's it called? It's a polling place, right? That's exactly right. You're being polled. You see, they put together this thing called the Electoral College with the 13 original colonies. Now, the state that I'm in, the state of Rhode Island, showed up to one of the meetings when they're putting it together. And the state of Rhode Island said, what the hell are you people doing? You're putting a backdoor to power so that the same people who have always held power will continue to. And the state of Rhode Island bailed on the construction of the Electoral College. Yet we conveniently remain ignorant by choice, acting like our vote counts, acting like it's not the Electoral College. And even it's gotten so bad, there's a ridiculous show on television called Adam Ruins Everything. He basically verbatim told everyone on television what I'm telling you, but at the same time, he programmed you and said, but don't forget to vote. It's important. So he tells you your vote doesn't count for anything. And then he tells you how important it is to vote. The truth is your vote does nothing. You're being polled. What they basically do is they collect the data to see if CNN and Fox have programmed enough people to get it to go the way they want, and they don't care anyhow. Here's examples. Trump sat against the so-called popular vote. Well, how can that be? More Americans voted one way, but they sat a contender against that vote. Well, here's another one. There's a president called Benjamin Harrison. He was sat against the popular vote. In other words, everyone voted for someone else or the majority, yet they still put him in as president. You know who his descendants are? Those geniuses that give us the television program Pawn Stars are the descendants of Benjamin Harrison. This is insider baseball all the way down the line. And the problem is this is why I say belief is the enemy of knowing. And to be perfectly clear, that's not a shot at anyone's religious tradition. From my point of view, a human being has free choice. You can choose any spiritual path you want. When I say belief is the enemy of knowing, this is what I'm talking about. Do you want to believe your vote has something to do with what's going on here? Or do you want to know what your vote actually counts for? And if you want to know, you go verify everything I said, and it's not hard to do. And by the way, you were told that in high school, just to be clear about it.
Fascinating stuff. And again, interesting discussions. Don't have to agree with everything, research everything and decide what you know and not what you believe. And I have a little saying, in the middle of every belief is a lie. If you look at the word, you'll know what I mean. And to me, belief restricts you from knowing, because if you have a belief, you've already decided what's true and you quit studying anything else.
Right.
And we're going to go into our break right now on Unindoctrinate Radio. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty talking with CRROW777. You can find him on YouTube. You can also find CRROW777 Radio as well, webpage. And we'll be right back with more with CRROW777. So that's just a fake break. I'll start us right back up again.
All right. It's actually CRROW777 Radio. The site you said is a ripped off site.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, when we come back, make sure you say that. Let me get it right back going here. Stop, reset, boom. Okay. So welcome back to Unindoctrinate. We're talking with CRROW777, and he wants to make a correction to a statement I made at the close of the last broadcast, or the last segment. Please go ahead.
So there's only one CRROW website in the world. It's called CRROW777radio.com. That's CRROW777radio.com. The reason I'm saying this is there are people out there who have done knockoff sites. They're dumping malware on people. They're doing data collection. They've run things to try to convince people I'm a Satanist, I'm a Mason, all this nonsense that has no basis in reality. So to be clear, the only real website that reflects me, the living man, is CRROW777radio.com. And just to be extra clear, my name, CRROW777, has nothing to do with Aleister Crowley. I have zero respect for that man. He just ripped off traditions, acted in a selfish way, and did things that I have no respect for. The 2 R's in my name is based on my corporate birth name, as are the 7s. I'm born with 3 names, all had 7 letters, all summed to 7. And when I was setting up my YouTube channel, there were already a bunch of crows on YouTube, and my wife pointed this out. That's how I got the name.
Makes sense. Now, we talked about the TV being a enculturating tool, and if you take a little TV and put it in a theater, you've got the big movies. Would you say that we should be diligent in regards to the movies, just like we are with television?
Here's the thing, man. In 1966, a couple new modern programs came out. One was Star Trek with the original Captain Kirk. The other one was Batman with Adam West. Now, I was alive because I'm older than dirt almost right now.
Me too, Crow. Me too.
Exactly. So we used to put bath towels around our neck to be a cape and run around that campy version of Batman. So let me ask, if we could take what the Dark Knight, as they now call him, and the Joker are all the way back to 66 and show those human beings what it became, they would be horrified. So this is the problem, because what happens is it's like the frog in boiling water. The first time you see a thing, it's shocking. The 1,000th time you've seen a thing, it quits being shocking. And you start to just think this is normal. It's not normal. The ugliness of Batman and the Joker is not normal. It's ugly. It's dark. It's gritty. It's programming. It's all these things I could say. The point is yes. And by the way, the Tavistock Institute is one of the premier social engineers of our existence. And one of the people from there said, I could control the entire world. Just give me control of TV. And people should keep that in mind, because it's a true statement.
Absolutely.
Human beings live by example. Think about this. So let's imagine there actually was a time when some group of people didn't have fire, and they had to wait for lightning to hit the ground and then go get that fire and keep it safe. But then they saw this other group of people who had fire, and they're thinking, man, look, how'd those people get fire? Well, how do they learn? Well, the people who have it got to show them, right? And it's an example. That's all human beings. So these examples of other human beings come to us through television. If you see atrocious behavior, like let's take ridiculousness off TV, where it shows people getting kicked in the testicles. So what's happened here is a show called Jackass convinced young people that if you go out and hurt yourself in a pretty serious way, you might get hits on YouTube, and that's more valuable than being unharmed. You see, you can see the damage that happens, and now that's normalized in our society. There's nothing normal about that. That's perverse by its very nature. Human beings should not think that if I hurt myself, it's worth a few views in YouTube. These are the examples. My point is, human beings learn by example, and if you're not careful, movies and TV become that example.
And we have some, we know what movies are, we know what TV is. We're people that are supposedly have heightened awareness, and we understand that those things are working against us. What I'm not convinced that we understand, Crow, is that there are many people, let's just say there's at least some people, I try to be optimistic, there's at least some people on YouTube, and there's at least some people in the quote unquote truther, quote unquote woke community that are using the same type of tactics and the same type of methodologies. And in fact, some of them come out of this Hollywood culture. They come out of this intelligence agency culture. They come out of, the Silicon Valley culture, and they're trying to use the same techniques on us in the truther movement. And I see people falling for it left and right. And it just boggles my mind. Do we turn a blind eye to that? Do we come out against it? Or do we just do what we can to put out true information and let the people decide for themselves?
You got to get in your adult higher mind, and you've got to change your own mind. You and I have no control over any other mind but our own. And when you change your mind, you have in fact changed something. It's kind of like the 100th monkey idea, maybe, in a way. In other words, once some human beings change their mind, it's kind of in the mind stream. And you'll notice other human beings get similar ideas or the exact same idea. Haven't you ever noticed that? Like a new thing comes to be, and it happens in 2 or 3 or 4 or 100 places at once. All of a sudden, this thing that wasn't is, and it's sprouting up. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, common sense is one of the things that was trained out of us. In school, what we were taught was you memorize what we've told you here and then regurgitate it to get your A. At no time were you ever taught challenge this information to see if there's any validity here. See, that's common sense thrown out the window. And when people come to say, terrible things about what I do, I'm not concerned with it. I wish everyone the best in the world, and I know that. In the same way I know the sky is blue. It's not arguable to me. So I'm trying to re-exert common sense. The truth is all we can do is provide the best example we can. There's religious traditions all over the world that use that example. This person became holy or godly or the best example there was, and people followed him. Each of us needs to try to be the best example we can. Care for each other, make adult decisions, use common sense, because these are the things that have led us into this fantasy-based kind of Hollywood existence. People believe in the craziest things these days, and that's got to be holy because they saw it on a movie somewhere.
Right, right. And, while we're here, we might as well touch the untouchable third rail for a quick second. Something that's come up very recently and has exploded. Some people think it's crazy. Some people think if you don't believe it, it's crazy. And we're, talking, of course, about the subject of flat Earth. How do we get out of the fight and actually get to some real understanding and discussion? And if we're all reasonable people on both sides, we should be able to come to some sort of an understanding on it.
That's a fact. What you see is people believe what they choose to believe. I was told the truth in school. My religion says this, so that's true. All these things, but it's a far cry from using your God-given ability as a human being who is above the animals because what we can do with our minds. See, I put up the lunar wave footage. 30 days later, the flat Earth movement kicked off.
Really? Is that literally, you put it like 12, you said 2012, you put up the lunar wave.
13, October 2013, 30 days later, Jason and I didn't even know till we had a guest on, and then we verified it. Then this big place wanted to get footage from us, and they verified it. So we know it to be true. But when it happened, I didn't know. I knew there was something there, but I didn't know whether to make heads or tails. So I did what I always do. How can I apply common sense? How can I boil this down to something I can wrap my arms around? So this is what I did.
So we can blame you for flat Earth, is what you're telling me.
No, because when it happened, I was like everyone else trying to figure out, is there anything here? But yeah, the lunar wave, I think what happened is people said, well, wait a minute, if the moon's not what I think, what else is wrong around here? I don't know. But that's how it happened. That's the timeline. And I'm not trying to take credit for the flat Earth, because when it broke, I was saying, wait a minute, what is this? Mm-hmm. I don't know what to do. I can't wrap my head around it. So this is what I did. I thought about it. And then I got the biggest telephoto lens I have with a doubler, went out to the desert, and I shot across a longer than a 10-mile throw and realized I could see too far. And at that very moment, I knew the curvature model was a lie.
Now, CRROW, what do you mean? Break it down for people when you say you could see too far.
If you go look up what the curvature model is, and I'm not going to get into that in detail because everyone who wants to know should know these things for themselves. Right. You're only going to be able to see a certain amount of time distance before something should be over the horizon. So if you're shooting low on one shore of a long shot of a lake and you can see the shore, like you're just a few inches above the water and you can see the shore, at a certain distance, it should be over the horizon a little bit. Well, I realized right there that it's a lie. And so it didn't give me a new map. It didn't tell me what the world looks like, but it certainly told me that someone had taken the time to make up a lie about the curvature model. And once you recognize a lie on that scale, you say, wait a minute, something's going on here. And I'll be perfectly clear. Mm-hmm. I have never counted myself a flat earther. But you see, I supported them the whole time because they're doing what human beings are supposed to do, challenge what's supposedly unchallengeable.
And I agree with that 100%. People always ask me, Jeff, why do you keep going back to flat Earth? Because I love the flat Earth mentality of questioning something that everybody says, duh, don't you know it's true? They're actually questioning it. And I respect that. And I applaud that.
Is there something wrong with human beings trying to learn? Because if you want to ridicule for someone for challenging an idea just because it was in a textbook, then what you're saying is, I want to believe in the textbook. Please don't challenge what the textbook told me. Well, I challenged it. I can see too far. Doesn't give me the new map. Wish it did. Doesn't. But it did open up a lot of doors. So I'll just leave this. And by the way, the reason I didn't become a flat earther, and I have lots of friends that are big in that community, and I respect what they're trying to do, and I support them, is because I'm my own guy. I don't want to be in a position where I've got to say, is this true, what this person's saying, and have to constantly vet and be influenced. I want my own original ideas. That's why I'm my own guy. But here's another thing. So as I began to look into it, I found this guy named Robotham. Here's what Robotham
Yes, I was
did.
just reading about him before we started. That's so funny.
I'm going to lay it down, and people can do what they want. I'm not here to sway you. If you want to know some things, then go challenge what's been said. If you find fault with something I've said, you should not accept it, period. If
Absolutely.
you can poke a hole in anything I've said, it is your duty to try to rip a hole in it. And if you can't, then maybe there's value. If you can't,
and it's your duty to try to poke a hole in everything you hear.
Fact. So Robotham did this. He suspected that what they've been told about curvature was wrong. So he started doing all these tests, and he said, yep, the world is flat, but that wasn't enough. But what he did next was ingenious. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why I know it's ingenious, because I spent my life on ships and boats. I was a Marine, so I was on naval craft. When you're in rough weather and open ocean and you need to see a lighthouse, it's no damn joke. You will not lie about the distances. That's the difference between a ship going down at sea or a ship making it to safety because they can see the lighthouse.
It's literally life and death.
It is literally life and death. Every lighthouse has government sanctioned measurements that say how tall it is, how far away the light can be seen. And it's usually done in this way: poor weather, fair weather, good weather. 3 sets of viewing, statistics.
Right.
So what Robotham did is he went out and he started checking every lighthouse, and he produced 25 of them that you could see from too far, and he published it. So the powers that be hired a guy to come debunk Robotham. Here's where the story gets interesting. I think, honestly, the man sent to debunk Robotham thought Robotham was crazy. I honestly think he thought Robotham was crazy because he believed what his textbooks had told him. And so he said, this will be simple. This guy's a nutcase, and I'm going to take apart his math. The first thing the debunker says is Robotham's math is unimpeachable. It is spot on. There is no problem with his math. So he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going. He couldn't do it. So the final statement from the debunker of Robotham was this: it is clear that Robotham cherry-picked 25 lighthouses. And I almost fell out of my chair laughing, because if Robotham can produce 1 lighthouse that can be seen from too far, there's a darn problem here. He produced 25. Some of these lighthouses no longer exist, but some do, but it does not matter, because the government confirmed official stats that tell people at sea how far these lights could be seen from is still on the record. So what Robotham did there was ingenious, but here's the problem. Robotham proved curvature model's nonsense. Proved it. I proved it. Plenty of people have proved it. We have a nonsense curvature model, but it does not give us the new map. And to be honest with you, I hope I live long enough to see a map that I could put faith in. And to put a fine point on it, anyone listening can go online and get projections of maps. One's called the Mercator projection. That was probably in every high school for every person listening. Mercator projection will show you what a continent looks like. Now go get a Gall Peters. Now get a Peters. Look up all the projections and put them side by side by side. You know what you're going to see? None of them match. From my logical mind, driven by common sense, if none of them match, then none of them can be accepted. What I'm here to tell you is it's probable that you don't even know the shape of the continent you're standing on, because you've been told this nonsense that, oh, we have this curvature ball that we had to put on a flat map. Well, let me tell you something. The moment you went to space and took a picture of this world, that problem went away, because a continent from space looks like a continent from space. No more argument. But you see, you've never seen a picture of anything from space, because there's a little thing called the hard, fast barrier, the firmament, the dome, whatever tradition you want to assign a label to it. And I accept it from all the research that I did. My point being is there's good reason to challenge these things, and you don't lie about the distance of a lighthouse. If you do, people could lose their lives at sea.
Right. So you're comfortable with stating that we've never seen, and all the pictures we've seen of the Earth, that we've never actually seen a picture of the Earth from orbit?
No.
Okay.
You never have. They're cartoons, and they're provable cartoons. Not only that, you can put them side by side, and the landmass sizes have changed, and the clouds have been cloned and duplicated. Endless images. The blue marble image from the 2007 iPhone. So they took this one called the blue marble, put it on every desktop of the 2007 iPhone to program all the minds into once again believing that was a picture of Earth from space, when in fact we now know the name of the artist who did it. His name was Simmons. Simmons is on the record saying NASA gave me this data and I made a picture that I thought would be what Earth looked like from space. It's all nonsense. It is a snapshot of nothing. You have never seen in your entire life a snapshot of anything from space, to include so-called planets. When they did the stupid Pluto flyby, which was just a Disney-esque mind warp, I took that apart. And that was the biggest attack on my channel. The Gizmodo, the Daily Mail in the UK, all attacked me for it. I had never seen so many thumbs down on a video. Every video I've ever made, the thumbs up were so far ahead of thumbs down. Usually it's like 3% thumbs down. All of a sudden, there they were, thumbs up and thumbs down, neck and neck, because how dare you challenge Pluto? But I'm here to tell you, it's all just artwork, paintings, fantasy.
Question from Cynthia L. Crow. She says, we've been lied to about so much that the shape of the earth is not important to me. I'm not sure what it changes one way or the other. How will it change my life?
All right. I'll tell you another thing I did, and you can maybe find value in this.
Okay.
Before I went out with my telephoto lens to shoot across that lake in the desert to see if I could see too far, I did this test. I went out where I set up in Lemon Grove, California, where I was at the time in San Diego. I went out to the concrete pad where I set up my scope, and I cleared my mind. I meditated for a moment. I closed my eyes and I turned my face to the sun, and I imagined I was in a spinning solar system, just the way school taught me, just the way NASA told me. Everything's spinning. The world's spinning on its axis faster than the speed of sound. It's going around the sun many times the speed of a 30-06 rifle bullet. That is going around the galaxy many, many, many times. And I just imagined that was all true, and that's where I am. Then I went inside. I had a sandwich, had a glass of water, and I cleared my mind again, and I walked back out. I did the same thing. I cleared my mind. I meditated. I shut my eyes. I turned my face to the sun, and I imagined I was on a stationary plane. And I had an epiphany. From that day, I found stability in an instant, stability that has never left me. And the problem with that is I can't scientifically prove to you what I just said, but for me, it was one of the most powerful moments in my life where I found I am not off balance. I'm not out of control. I'm not insignificant. I am stationary on a firm foundation. I'm no longer off balance, or I don't know how to describe it.
I gotcha.
You find a stationary, solid foundation, and it's never changed from that day to this. And had I not done this, all that work I did on what I call the sky clock probably would have been much different work.
I'll bet. Crow, I had the opportunity to spend about 2.5 hours locked in a room with Eddie Bravo, and you can imagine what we talked about. And the one thing that he says, and I found this very fascinating, he says that he won't ever talk to anybody about flat Earth before he asks them what they think about the moon landing. He says if they believe the moon landing went off as told, then they will never get to flat Earth. So he talks about the moon landing. And, I'll say this about the moon landing from my perspective. And since you came up with the lunar wave, I'd invite you to give us your perspective on this. I'm not going to say that whether we went to the moon or we didn't, but what I am going to say is the show that they gave us going to the moon was not going to the moon.
Well, I'll jump in then. We didn't go to the moon. It's provable. And by the way, if anything we've done is correct, like the hard, fast barrier, some like to call the firmament, or the idea that maybe space is better described as liquid. If any of those things are even close to the mark, it puts a different frame. But let me give you one proof.
So would that explain? So if space might be liquid, then these pictures and films we see of astronauts in bubbles, is it possible that they're really out there and that they're not filming in a...
They're in a pool with a green screen. That's been shown over and over. But here, let me do this.
Okay.
First of all, go look at Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't usually tell people to watch movies, but the whole beginning of
Cody Scott Rose.
Right. The whole beginning of Hitchhiker's Guide is telling you space is water. The dolphins are leaving the planet. Well, where are they going?
That's
Why
interesting.
do they got to bring their towels to space? Why is it they're telling you that space is liquid? And there are many examples. But here's the thing. So we are told that Mr. Werner von Braun was this terrible Nazi who we snuck into this country, and he became basically the head of NASA. He's such a brilliant engineer that to this day, no one can touch him. He designed the Saturn V rockets, most powerful rockets. And even with computers that we didn't have back then, no one can seem to touch what Werner did. But here's the problem. Werner von Braun supposedly died in 1977. Everyone listening, jump on your search engine, do an image search for Werner von Braun's headstone. He left us two things: his death and birth dates and a psalm. That psalm is encoding 9/11. It's 191. That's a 9/11 encode. And you know what it says? The glory of God can be seen in the firmament. So make up your mind, Werner von Braun, were your Saturn V rockets going to outer space, or is there a firmament?
That's
Even Werner von Braun left the truth behind and encoded 9/11 in it to boot. And for people who don't know, well, I'll let that go since I don't.
Let me throw something at you, CRROW, that I don't think anyone else has ever said. I've got a rather unique background. I spent 20 years as a licensed Protestant minister. I've got a Bible college degree. I have over 100,000 hours of study in the biblical scriptures. And it is my belief after all of this time and after all of this study that I agree with Thomas Jefferson that the Bible really is a field of dung with a few diamonds in it. And my advice to flat earth believers is don't pin your hopes on the Bible, because that's about to come tumbling down.
Here's what I'll say. I'm very careful about this because there's no point in me speaking to large audiences if I'm going to close minds and insult people. That's a good point. That is my worst fear. Human beings have the right to choose their spiritual path. I speak to people all over the world. And as we know, religion has a lot to do with where you're born. So I'm a very spiritual person, but I never talk about it in public. That's between me and my creator. So here's what I'll say. Any religious scripture that is past the test of time has so many levels of meaning, it's unimaginable. Most religious scriptures, like the ones we use in the West here, the surface reading is to weed out people who are not prepared to go any further. It's what it's there for. If you will believe in that, that's as far as you're going. There are levels upon levels upon levels buried in that. And the problem is we don't have a lot of those men in the black robes at the front of your church. They don't know. They've long forgotten what the levels of meaning are. They've been told to do the surface reading and to convince you to literally accept what's being written. But I have found that every aspect of the sky clock, something so important to me, is encoded in the Bible in the acceptable year of the Lord. Well, what is that? What's a year? It's the sun. The sun dictates a year. We can show these things all day long. So I will never belittle any religion because, first of all, how am I qualified to act like I know all the levels of meaning? And since I am a person who's gone a few levels deep, I began to understand that if I had a really qualified teacher, I might know a heck of a lot more. But what I understand certainly is if you're only doing a surface read, then you might as well just believe in the Easter Bunny.
Absolutely. And I would suggest to add on to that really the only qualified teacher is the one that you look at in the mirror. You've got to know what you know for yourself and don't accept beliefs that somebody else tries to push on you. Thanks for that answer. And, I was talking again with my girlfriend, Cynthia. We're about 8 hours from Dallas. They've got the big Flat Earth convention down in Dallas, I think, this coming up weekend.
Yeah, Jason's going to be there speaking.
What would I find if I went down there, CRROW, and spent a couple days walking around talking to people?
You'd find a bunch of people that passionately found at differing levels what I found. Curvature model's wrong. You'll find people that take it further than I will, but that's not a problem. They want a new map. They're trying to make a new map, but you can't. We gotta have that magic Wonder Woman plane that takes us up to the edge of what we call space, so we can look back down someday and know, are there more continents that we've been told? What's this whole Antarctica thing? Back in the 50s, Byrd told us that when you go past the South Pole, there is more land than the United States and Canada put together and more resources than you've ever seen. Shows you footage where there's no ice. Why? How can it be that we're in the 2000s, the 21st century, and we've never seen a picture of it? I'll tell you why, because Antarctica is key to this lie. You see, so you don't know how many landmass. And I'm not even going to say if we are correct, the curvature model is wrong. We are correct that you should be able to absolutely see every map showing you the shape of your continent. You can't do it. If these things are true, the one thing that cannot be replicated very easily in this world is more land. So it stands to reason that if you're lying about everything, you're probably hiding land masses. And the Antarctic thing, that doesn't hold water for a moment. Some people like to imagine there's an ice wall, that Antarctica is an ice wall all the way around the world. Others want to act like it's land that keeps going on to some infinite I don't know about those things, but I know certainly Antarctica is a lie. I can prove the lie, but I want the map, and I'm not able to produce the map right now.
Where I am right now, and back in reference to our Eddie Bravo quote, where I am right now is I know that what they say about going to the moon wasn't true, and I know that what they're telling us isn't true.
Right.
So my mind is open to discovery. My mind is open to asking. And I heard somewhere through the grapevine that Owen Benjamin wants to debate me, and if he's listening or somebody that knows him is listening, have him contact me. I'm ready, willing, and able, and I have the respect the hell out of Owen for his comedy. He's really a comedic genius.
I think Owen's actually closing the Flat Earth convention.
He is. He's performing down there.
Yeah. Jason's going. My co-host is going, but not to speak Flat Earth. He's going to talk about social programming. And I'll probably give him an audio clip and say hi to everyone there and encourage them to keep on challenging things. Because with so many lies, the first question you have to ask is, well, why? If we left this world, that's the most amazing thing. Why do you need to lie about it? And I'll tell you why. Because if you don't know where you exist, you have no idea where you can go from here.
And with that, I'm going to end the Unindoctrinate radio show. Thank you for listening. We've been speaking to CRROW777. CRROW, one more time, tell the people on the radio where they can find the only official website.
All right, two things. We have a movie called Shoot the Moon. It's 2 hours long with more weird things than any movie I've ever seen. It's on Vimeo on demand.
10 seconds.
And CRROW777radio.com is the website. Again, CRROW777radio.com. Thanks so much.
Okay, we're still here for 9 more minutes on YouTube. I just wanted to put the radio to bed. And, that's, people say, why do you talk about flat Earth? Well, again, I am a guy that is interested in learning. I'm a guy that's interested in challenging paradigms. I'm a guy that's interested in tearing down old stayed paradigms. And there's enough questions out there that I would hate for guys to stop thinking and girls to stop thinking and studying and trying to learn about the flat Earth, because I love that spirit of inquiry. And it's that spirit of inquiry that not only makes us human, but it keeps us free. And at the end of the day, that's at least my point of view.
Here's the thing, man. So many things in this world are designed for you to give away your power. The claim and the offer in the modern fictitious law world we live in. Don't give up your power. And I'll tell you another thing. It's a human right to understand, where are we? Where do we exist? How long have we been here? How did we get here? These are human birthrights that have been denied us, because I assure you, there are people in this world who can answer those questions, or they wouldn't be making up the curvature model lies that I can prove. And I will never need to argue that. When I go outside, I know the sky's blue. Is anyone going to be able to come up to me and say, CRROW, sky's green? I will just smile and walk away. It can't be argued.
But CRROW, what about truth. All the math, all the formulas that they throw at us
that's how they
can
do
prove?
It. That's how they do it. Did you know that math can describe anything, including things that don't exist? You see, that's how it's done. If you go into nature, that's where you find the truth. There is no lie in nature. When something needs to happen in nature, it damn well gets done. Mm-hmm. When you learn something from a deer or a bird or your garden, it is without beguilement. It is without dishonesty. Math is not that. Math is a construct of men, used by men to separate the guys in the white lab coats and the NASA lies. And I'm not telling you math's not helpful. It is, but nature is the be all and end all, not math.
Would you say that math itself might be a religion?
I guess I wouldn't go that far. I would say science has become a bit of a religion, because what has happened is look, here's a good example. There's a show called The Big Bang Theory. It was one of the biggest shows in the country.
Comedy, right?
Right. A comedy that pushed the mental issues as okay with the Sheldon Cooper character. He's an odd duck, but good thing we have him idea. Kind of poking you in the eye about autism. But here's the thing. Big Bang Theory is named for a thing that you're taught in school. Guess what? The laws, not theories, the laws of thermodynamics prove that the Big Bang is impossible. It violates the law. So the Big Bang theory, what are we doing here, guys? Are we accepting theories or laws? Thermodynamics have been around since the 1800s. It's been proved over and over and over and over. It's a law.
Give
like
a brief description of the law, third law of thermodynamics.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let people look it up because
perfect. I love that.
I'm not here to think for
We're not
you.
here to spoon feed people.
Right. If you do that on your own and you
Second
come to a conclusion, yeah, something like that. But there's other things too. Look at other things that we use as if they were laws. Gravity is a good example. You know what gravity actually is? It's a theory based on a theory. And I know a lot of heads just explode, but I'm being honest with you. It is not a law. And they're telling us they found gravity waves. Well, okay, you found gravity waves. So that means we now have a law called gravity. No, we do not. We have a theory based on a theory, and we all act like it's true. So I will ask openly, if we threw aside a theory and thought about things in a different way, would we be able to achieve more? I'm just asking here. It's not a law.
And, you know, my thought is this: if there's something that should be as open and shut as what the shape of the thing we're living on is, I mean, that should be an open and shut case. And then some people will say it is. But if there is room for debate, discussion, investigation, inquiry, learning, seeking, then there's room for that in every single thing in this life. And the one thing that you can't do is stop searching, stop looking, stop questioning. Because once you decide you know it all, cousin, you are done. It's all over for you. Because if you think you know it all, you have really just become the stupidest person on this planet, on this plane, whatever you think you're on.
Yeah, it's important to get back to common sense. And what common sense does for you is it grows you up. If there's a true adult in the room, he's not worried what the other 100 adults have to say. He's interested in being a darn grown-up. He's interested in being able to teach his young children or the next generation something that's real. But what we have turned into is a society bereft of common sense, who, if the whole audience yells, well, then we're afraid to go against the audience. Well, I'm not afraid of the audience. I'm not harming anyone. As a matter of fact, I love everybody in the audience, and I wish everybody in the audience the best life possible, but I'm not swallowing the damn pill anymore. There's a whole
CRROW Lisa J says, if the earth is flat, then how come she can see curve in an airplane?
Well, first thing I would say is maybe you didn't, but if you're certain that you did, a lot of people have pointed out that the windows were designed by the big aircraft companies to have a lensing effect. Truth is I wasn't there with you, so I'm just speculating on your speculation.
And Dearth is in the chat room. I didn't mean to call you Dearth, but
there it is.
I actually have ridden in the back of an F-15. I won something when I was in the Air Force, and when I was up there that high, I think right before I passed out and threw up in my mask, that I thought I looked out and saw what looked like curvature, but I began to study, and those canopies produce a curvature effect. So that's
by design. And a lot of times you see people filming with a fisheye lens, but I have a friend who was on the Concorde back in the day, and he had video from the Concorde. There's no curvature in any of his video, but I don't need to know that. That was one of the things that was billed. Oh, you can see the curvature of the earth from the Concorde. But here's another thing. Go look at the models they used to train every airline pilot. It will tell you in the patent for the software that it is designed for a flat stationary plane to best train pilots. So wait a minute, let me get this straight. They're training people on a flat stationary plane to go fly on a round spinning. There's plenty of proofs out there. And here's the real truth. If you're asking me all these questions, I'll ask you a simple question. Why are you asking me these questions? Because you chose to believe something, or because you've done research? If you do research, as a matter of fact, David is in the chat room right now. He has a challenge. Go get his $3 app, which cost a ton of money to make, and take his 2-week challenge. His 2-week challenge is, if you use the app for 2 weeks, you may very well switch your mind what used to be. You know why? Because you've done some investigation at that point. So I'm not prepared to argue or try to think for people, but I'm just asking, if you're just doing something and asking questions because you believe it, then why are we talking? Because you're not ready to do research to know things.
And that app is worth the $3 just for the entertainment value. So I definitely recommend that you go get David's app.
It's one of the best made apps. I don't use apps, but it's very well put together. And one thing it does right away is forces your mind to think about the sky clock in a different way. And if nothing else was true of that app, that would be enough for me. The sky clock is the most important thing we've been taught to ignore. It is the be all and end all for life here. It's what allows everything to live. It's what makes a year, a day, a month, a season. And we've all been convinced that our iPhone does that, which it does not.
CRROW, tell us again where we can find you and leave us with the closing thought. We got about 20, 30 seconds. Take your time.
All right. CRROW777 Radio, CRROW777 radio.com is the only true CRROW site. You can find Shoot the Moon, full 2-hour film on Vimeo on demand. And my closing thought is this. Be kind to each other. Don't buy into this. Everyone's an agent on the internet. We're all human beings. We're all in this together. When I come on these places, it doesn't matter if I agree with the channel I'm on. I'm expressing ideas here. But the difference is I give a damn about everyone in the chat room. I want you and your children to have a better life than I have seen to date, full of lies and deceptions. And we're all adults here. All we got to do is challenge it to change.
Absolutely. Those of you in the chat room, I salute you for being here, seeking after truth. CRROW, if you could just hold for 1 second so I could say goodbye to you personally. I do appreciate every one of you here in the chat room. We know that history is written by the winners. I'm okay with that because when I look at you, I'm sure that together we can win today and write a better tomorrow. We're the last generations of real humans. We can make good things happen if we get busy. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower for CRROW777. We're wishing you a very great day, and we'll see you again real soon.